Country Talk Radio. You're in to all things music.
When it comes to music, I was paranoid as a kid that there was something I didn't know about. When an older dude would go like, seriously, you've never heard Chet Baker? I'm like, no, what should I? And then you go, oh, heck yeah, I should. Mm-hmm. Or Ron Carter for me was a life-changing one. But then I'd read about some industrial band and behind the Iron Curtain that couldn't even legally play or record, but they did it anyway. I'm like, I wonder what that sounds like. You know, I always felt like I was missing something, but it was that directness of punk rock that I really liked.
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
If he's got something up his sleeve, where's he from? Who is his daddy? There's rumors he even thinks himself a king.
Welcome, everybody, to Intersect Radio. Happy Tuesday to everybody, and hope all is going well. Thank you for tuning in today. We have a very special guest here in the studio with us today. We have the Duke. Mr. Mark Robertson.
Howdy.
Bassist extraordinaire, producer, songwriter, cyclist, all around athletic type.
Sure.
And I want to thank you for coming in, Mark.
Yeah, man.
And before we get started here, thank you to Studio Instrument Rentals and Pitbull Audio for sponsoring the Intertalk Radio Network. And so let's just dive into your life really fast here, Mark. I want to know all about your childhood, where you were born, and eventually what led up to music being your point of interest, and how did the bass come in?
Okay. I was born in Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital in 1962. My parents are from Indiana, but my dad for work had moved to Southern California before I was born. And we kind of moved back and forth my whole life, Indiana, or I mostly grew up in San Gabriel, California, which is very near Pasadena, like half hour outside L.A. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it was kind of like a lower middle class Hispanic neighborhood, and some Asian folks, but it was very near very wealthy neighborhoods. So you'd have such a diverse kind of friendships, it's like really odd and fun. I really loved it, especially at my age. It was skateboarding and surfing, and punk rock had first started.
You surfed?
I sure did.
Wow.
And raced BMX. I was in all the California sports of the day, and briefly turned pro as a skateboarder and things until the music got me. But it was kind of it was when my dad was a construction guy and my mom was a housewife. And it's pretty typical lower middle class, kind of upbringing. And I was definitely like the odd man out. It was a really tough upbringing with my folks because I'm just nothing like them. There's no artists or musicians in my family. My first time, I can't remember when you're a little kid and you fill out those little papers of what you think you might want to do for a living someday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think my older brother said he wanted to be either a truck driver or a welder, which made perfect sense for our family. Uh-huh. That's your lot in life. I wanted to be an author, and my dad gave me the hardest time about that. Really? And it was a tough thing, It's like he would admit years later, we get along great now, but he's like, I just didn't like you because you're nothing like me, and it didn't make any sense. He's like, you look just like me, but you don't act. So it was a tough thing relating. It made for a really tough childhood. You just were never going to get any approval.
Yeah.
But I think it also installs an individual thing in you.
Mm-hmm.
or instills, I should say. It's like you got nobody but you.
Right.
And that was
and then you get friends along the way.
Absolutely. And they bolster your individuality. They're
Right.
like my parents, like the fact that I was great on a skateboard or something meant that to them that was like, so you're really good at something stupid. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But your buddies go like, yeah, dude, you're the best skateboarder on the block,
Right.
whatever. And so you see like, okay, well, maybe they don't get me, but somebody might, And
Right.
so it's kind of a weird identity crisis. And really, the thing is, my dad and my older brother, who's been a dear friend for life, my older brother was a saving grace of my whole family. And he's
Did he become a truck driver or a welder?
He's a pastor.
He's a pastor.
Very late in life.
Wow.
Very late in life. He's actually the person who led me to Christ years ago. And it was in a really awkward, weird way, but it was extremely profound. But anyway, we'll get to that later. But he was always cool, but we had nothing in common. He didn't care about music. When I got into skateboarding, he sort of liked it, but not really. I got into drugs. He had no interest in that.
How much older is he?
2 years.
Okay.
And but we couldn't be less alike if we tried.
Mm.
But we're still very, very close to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And so he always had my back, so that was kind of good.
Mm-hmm.
As much as he could. You're 13 or 14. It's
Right.
You wish it was your dad.
Right.
But I had to settle for my brother, and as far as settling went, it was great.
Mm-hmm.
He really got me through it.
Yeah, my dad didn't like me playing music in bands. I think he'd been happier if I'd worked at the American Tobacco Company.
Oh yeah,
beside him.
Sure.
He just couldn't get it.
Yeah, and I kind of understand. I've never had children, but I understand that. You're like, oh, you don't want to go down that road, especially if you've been down that road. It's not for everybody. And I get it, but my poor mom, she's a hysterically dramatic woman to this second. And thank goodness both my parents are still alive. But my mom's always been this kind of psychosomatic, kind of like, just don't expect too much out of life. And my favorite thing is she has a certain basis of faith, but it's more like, it's like anything I would ever say, like, oh, so what are you doing today? Oh, I was going to go look for tires for the truck. And it's like, well, you just need to ask the Lord to find you the best deals on the perfect tires, though he probably won't. It was like, thanks for the talk, Mom. And like,
it's good to ask anyway.
but I met a couple of buddies. And there was just this weirdo kid, not in a bad way. He didn't do drugs or anything. He helped me get out of drugs, and he's just kind of this weird dude who I heard was an incredible classical guitar player. He was only like 16 years old. He's an honors student. He was the not kind of dude I hang out with. He's from a nice family. He never did drugs. He never had any interest. He was an honor student. I don't know how to relate to guys like that. And he became one of my very dearest friends. Hmm. And he turned me on to so many great books, and he turned me on to Bela Bartok, and he turned me on to, avant-garde classical music and certain jazz music, and he was really into progressive rock, and he was training me to be good enough to join a band with him. So really? I practiced guitar like I don't know how many hours a day. It was ridiculous. Huh. The footstool, grow out your fingernails, the whole thing, and I never got any good at it. I just especially compared to this guy. Mm-hmm. So we started this band. The keyboard player's playing left-hand bass because we got 3 guitar players. Nobody wants to play bass. And at one point, it finally became obvious I was the worst guitar player by far. So like, why don't you try bass maybe? And I did. And I got to say, in my case, I don't know about everyone else's, I saw it as a demotion for sure. And the second I first rehearsed with them. I mean, I practiced them, and I think I kind of got this. We did like progressive rock, like King Crimson and Yes and stuff like that. Really tricky. We rehearsed 5 nights a week, 3 hours a night. We're very serious people about our prog rock, but and you have to practice a lot to play that.
Oh
song.
Yeah, you do.
So, and John Wetton and Chris Squire, they're my big heroes. But the first time I ever played bass in the context of a band and started hearing how it related to the drummer's foot, especially. That was the first thing. and like the power of it. I'm like, God, where you been all my life? You know, I really like bass now. I'll play guitar, but it's almost a necessary evil to me at this point. I like them for writing, and I play guitar on records a lot, but I don't consider myself a guitar player. I love the bass. I love establishing a relationship with a drummer. There's something, as you know, the right rhythm section, it's just so huge. You know, I can tell by the slightest little twitch in your right hand, okay, I got to get out of his way. He's about to launch. Or vice versa. You know, when you have a good rapport, I especially at this point in life, probably with Steve Latin Nation, because we've been playing together for 30 years.
Yeah, that's right. 30 years?
We started playing together in 87, man.
Wow.
You and me did a gig or two together, and a record or two together. But yeah, that's sort of how I got into the whole thing, at least, as far as playing. And then I think that started at about 15. And then at 18 is where life got really weird. High school ended, my band ended. Started hanging out with kids who did harder drugs. Punk rock's in full swing. And I was kind of all about it, you know, especially that artsy kind of punk stuff. You know?
How did you get in punk from prog rock?
I always had two groups of friends. To me, I don't know. I bet you're kind of the same way. It's like when it comes to music, I was paranoid as a kid that there was something I didn't know about. You know what I mean? It's like when an older dude would go like, seriously, you've never heard Chet Baker? I'm like, no, what should I? And then you go, oh, heck yeah, I should. Or you know, Ron Carter for me was a life-changing one. But then I'd read about some industrial band and behind the Iron Curtain that couldn't even legally play or record, but they did it anyway. I'm like, I wonder what that sounds like. You know, I always felt like I was missing something. But it was that directness of punk rock that I really liked. Really, prog rock to me was it was just hard. So as a young musician, you have no choice but to practice a lot.
Right. It required technical ability. Yeah,
so it's why I listened to, I liked learning how to play Weather Report songs more than I like listening to Weather Report, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I totally get the Jocko thing. I love it. But that's not where my heart is, you know. I'm glad that he lived and showed us a different way of looking at it. But the punk thing, I was just the right age and the right neighborhood. The Hispanic scene, it was a big punk rock scene. And to this minute,
really,
from where I'm from, they don't play clubs; they play backyards only, and it's a very stoic, weird scene, and it just really attracted me as a kind of like a lower middle class kid, you know, just the grittiness of it, the directness of it, and again, as you know, you've played a lot of different kinds of music. I think it's just as hard to be great at any style. Yeah, great, top of your game.
Yeah.
Just we don't get paid by the note, you know. It's like some genres require more notes than others,
right?
But if you want to be great at anything, it's just as hard. That could be country or any number of kinds of music.
Yeah, it takes a deliberateness.
I think so,
like a deliberate, intentional practice, or you know, I'm going for that.
Yeah, totally.
Thing, you know,
but. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, when I grew up, it was you were more encouraged to learn a lot of different styles.
Yeah. I think our generation was more that way. I could be wrong, but I feel like when we were kids, or when I was a kid, we're totally showing our age, but I don't care. I'm in my 50s now, and well into my 50s, and there'd be these concerts that'd be like Peter Frampton and Gentle Giant and Miles Davis.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the thing that would get me to go to a concert is someone would say, like, you've never heard anything like this. I'm like, I'm in. But now it seems like you have to be able to describe it, what it is.
Yeah.
But once you can describe something, now there are rules about it, dubstep or whatever. And, well, you have to use this kind of synth, and you have to program this way, and you have to approach the drums like this. And I never thought that was a good thing musically. I want those people that are just constantly, even like when Miles failed, he was going for something. He was always pushing. And there's a lot of Steve Reich, I think, is that way. There's a lot of those people who are never satisfied. And I really love that approach to music. I think it's important.
Yeah, it is. You still have like in the jazz world, you still have a handful of people who are still going for it,
Yeah, I think so.
And in this community here in Nashville, it's quite healthy. And we have a new jazz club downtown now. And, but I really like listening to jazz from Lincoln Center. I get those podcasts. And Wynton Marsalis.
Sure.
Is the guy. He keeps that stuff alive,
Yeah. Well, he's like the jazz equivalent of the Stones to me or something, where it's like he's always got a really hardcore respect for tradition and the roots of it. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to just recreate those old records either. You want to push it.
Right.
And he was always the perfect amalgam of that. It's like Louis Armstrong is incredibly important to him, but so is somebody in a more modern era.
Right. And when he takes like the repertoire, like the old repertoire, he rearranges it.
Yeah.
To make it more up to date, to include more harmonic sort of variations and different soloists and that sort of stuff. Odd tempos. I mean, he just uses it all. He's really good.
That dude goes deep.
Yeah. So, I have not dedicated myself to a genre.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about it.
You've thought about dedicating yourself to a genre?
Yeah.
I don't see you doing that anytime soon. I mean,
I haven't done it yet.
The first way I ever even heard about you was like you got to hear this dude from the 77s. He's like John Bonham, but he's black. I don't know what that means, but other than
really?
He plays heavy. And
wow.
And but the first time I ever saw you play live, I'm like, okay, I get that. Turns out he is black. I can see, and he does play really heavy. And you had that kind of. I've done this to you on a Pro Tools file at a session, but if you look at your playing, if you blow it up, you rush your hat ever so slightly, you drag your snare ever so slightly, and your kick is dead on the money every time. It was freaky. I've done it just for me and Jordan Richter once did it. I'm like, look at this guy. It was over and over and over again. Like, now some people was like, well, that's a Motown drummer, which you have been. But it's also Bonham.
Really?
So there's a connection there.
Huh.
Yeah, I wouldn't think you would analyze it, but it is a really fascinating thing about the way you play.
Yeah, he's definitely one of my favorite. He's up there in the top 3.
Yeah, I can see that.
So yeah, I remember when I first heard Black Dog. We'll talk about that when we come back.
Absolutely.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
The Moyer Entertainment Group, in conjunction with ProMark, Dunlop, and Deadline Media, is keeping music in our local schools and presenting local talent to the world through the Temecula Valley Music Awards. Submissions for entry into the TVMA 2017 season are now open in all genres, including a youth category for artists under 18 for the October 7th Star-Studded Awards Show, where 100% of the proceeds go towards supporting local music education in the Temecula Valley. Details, tvmawards.org.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Back home where you belong, we will not ask you where you've been. The cap will get so nervous when he sees you come walking back in. When you're tired of the hole that you dug yourself in, we'll leave the light on for you. Come on in.
Good. I'm saying we were all involved.
That's music by my guest, Mr. Mark Robertson. And Mark just told me that I played drums on that tune.
I'd forgotten until just now.
Yeah. Wow. I just, when you sent it to me today, for some reason I thought it was, I didn't think it was the Shack Shakers, but I thought maybe it was some other band.
That was This Train, yeah.
This is This Train?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was our last record.
Wow.
It was, that was an odd song. I guess it's kind of why I picked it, because it involves the Ragamuffin guys to a certain extent.
Leave the lights on?
Yeah, we'll leave the light on.
lights on.
Yeah, and it's kind of a prodigal son sort of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I was really into like jump blues and swingy kind of music and rockabilly, the This Train thing. And Jimmy was just goofing around in the studio one day on some lick, and I made him just repeat it to me and teach it to me. I'm like, I'll give you a co-write, but can I just take it from here? And he let me. And Phil Kagi wound up coming in playing guitar on that. You played drums.
Wow.
Cobra Joe, the drummer in This Train, who is to this minute one of my closest friends.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, he was a very young dude, and I just thought that song bordered on kind of big band,
Mm-hmm.
bordered on it.
Yeah.
And I thought, I need a guy who can understand this a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And we were playing so much together and doing so many records together at the time, it was kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah. Is Cobra still here?
No, he moved to L.A. His wife got a really great job in the film industry, and he's got mixed emotions about it. He's from Mississippi, she's from Louisiana, and they're in L.A. And they kind of like, they've had a hard time meeting friends. Like, they meet friendly people, L.A. Everybody's friendly enough.
Yeah.
But they've had a hard time really connecting with people.
Okay.
They don't get the culture.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah. It's kind of all over the place out there.
Yeah.
It's still all about Hollywood.
Kinda,
Can't get away from that.
Well, like my first kind of the Christian punk scene, especially, was really coming out of Orange County.
Mm-hmm.
Which
One
kind of
Bad
cracked me
Pig.
up. Huh?
That was One Bad Pig.
Well, that was one of them.
Those guys.
You go from, I'm talking about like Lifesavers and Altar Boys, who I was in for many years.
You were in Altar Boys?
I was in Altar Boys for many years.
Okay.
Mike Stand is still a very close friend.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a rockabilly band now, and they're fantastic, called the Altar Billies.
Ah.
And it's just terrific. But Mike is one of my biggest musical mentors in a weird sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
Just an awesome guy. And Undercover and Mike Knott with the, LSU and Lifesavers, and there's so many good bands. The Choir came out of that scene, and punk being a painting with a really wide brush.
Yeah.
But it always cracked me up coming from San Gabriel, like, a poor Mexican neighborhood. I'm like, what is punk rock about Orange County? They all got money, but it's kind of where it kind of came from, and it's a different culture. When I became a Christian, and then hanging out in the Orange County Christian scene, I got saved at a Calvary Chapel, and
how'd that happen?
That's pretty. That's pretty like trendy for the day in a weird way, and it wasn't because it was a cool thing. I think the way I came to it was a really peculiar. In my opinion, I was just doing my thing, doing drugs and playing music and trying to meet girls and doing what kids my age do, 17, 18-year-olds. And my older brother, Artie, he comes home with like a Hal Lindsey record. And it's one of those Death Doom, Late Great Planet Earth kind of things. Mm-hmm. And it scared the living daylights out of me, I got to say. I listened to this record. This is not going to be a very good story, I don't think. But so I listened to this record. This is the scariest stuff ever. And I'm thinking, but it sounds like it actually sounded plausible in a weird sort of way to me. I'm like, well, what if all this stuff, I've never really thought about it much. My parents always said we were Protestant, but I didn't know what they even meant by, we didn't go to church. I didn't know anything about that. I'd hang out with people who cared about that. A few here and there. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know anything about it, really, other than the very basic stuff any kid would know. And, so I listened to this thing. I'm like, maybe I should check out what this is all about even or whatever. But I don't right away. Instead, I do LSD and go see the Cramps. And it scared me so bad. Because the Cramps I love that band. I still do. But they were kind of, in my mind, it was this demonic, crazy thing. It was like, because I was on drugs. But anyway, after that experience, I was like, no more drugs. And my brother he's like, you listen to the record? And I said, yeah, a couple times, man. That was rough. He's like, yeah. And this is what happened. We were on a job site. We were hanging drywall, me and him. And he said, yeah, it's your time. Let's go. All right. Yeah, you're right. And he said, I'm praying you into this thing. And it was so extreme. And it was so instantaneous. The second he said it, I believed him. Mm-hmm. And I knew he was right. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, let's go, man. And in my naivete as a young kid who didn't know anything about this, in my thinking of how doctrine worked, I went, if I don't get to a church and an altar call before Christ comes back, I've been listening to Hal Lindsey. He's coming back within the minute. Right. And if I don't make it to a church and confess this publicly, I'm going to hell. And I was terrified for like a week solid till I could get to a church.
Wow.
And even my older brother thought that at the time. So I went to a new believers study with him, and he even would tell people, it was like, well, he's not a believer yet. He hasn't done it. Like, but me and him had already done it. And I think that's when it happened, for sure. Mm-hmm. And it was really extreme. And I don't know if it happens like that for people as a rule or not, but for me, it was just this bizarre, hit me over the head, complete 180, instantaneous.
Yeah.
And my mindset was entirely different.
Wow.
But I still was terrified to get. So I went to Calvary Chapel where my brother went. Raul Reese, the one in West Covina.
Raul Reese, I tell you, brother.
And I went to the one in Alhambra as well with Xavier Reese, his brother.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Xavier. He was kind of my favorite in a weird way. And I heard still some of the best sermons because I kind of famously don't like preachers very much. Mm-hmm. It's been kind of a weird. Me and Rich used to joke about it a lot, and certain friends with churches are like, I love church. I hate preachers. I hate that how easily faith can become politicized or monetized. Mm-hmm. And it's a slippery slope, and we all can do it. And we all have to be super careful. Which is why the older I get, the less I have to say on the subject of faith in a weird way. Where like, I don't want to mess anybody up the way some people mess me up.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to be kind to people. I want people to have the freedom. We joked about this a couple weeks ago. Like, we call it a personal relationship, but so many church structures and our elders and things like that, they don't allow for that.
Right.
You still have to live up to a cultural ideal,
mm-hmm.
which is why I loved working with Rich and Rick Elias
mm-hmm. and
even Jimmy, such weirdos, that just, they had their own path. And Rich was so good at, like, you and me and Rick and Jimmy, those are different backgrounds. They have ways that we intersect, but we have different backgrounds, different parts of the country, different influences. And Rich made no effort to change that about any of us. He liked what was weird and singular about you, what was weird and singular about me.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't tell us how to dress, how to talk, how to be.
Right.
And I was like, that's when I felt the most free to start really searching out what it all meant to me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
so,
it does.
I mean, I owe a debt to Rich I could never repay, you know, and really to Rick in a lot of ways. He helped put me on the map as a player. And
How did you meet Rick?
Rick might not even remember this, but I was in a band called Brighton. It was my first band. We were signed to MCA for a minute.
What kind of music was that?
It was like, we were like Bowie and T-Rex and mixed with kind of the almost slightly new way. It was the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. We had big hair and we played poppy
stuff. Rhythm section?
Huh?
Just a rhythm section?
No, it was a full band called Brighton. Latination was the drummer.
Uh-huh.
And
how many pieces?
4.
4? Okay.
Yeah. And it was a straight ahead poppy rock band.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to go to this, it was some kind of one of those networking kind of groups, like for Christians in the entertainment industry. And it's held in some office building somewhere in West LA or something, and you just go there, and hang out, and you hope to meet people, and maybe you'll find an agent, and maybe all you do is you get encouraging, help somebody, or so we're in there, and we're meeting kind of some colorful characters. Some just kind of seem like posers, some seem like the real deal. And then meanwhile, this guy kind of shows up, looks like kind of like a junkie, like Keith Richards meets Bruce Springsteen guy, like 9 feet tall, and it's a good-looking dude. I'm like, what's up with him? We go over and introduce ourselves, and he says his name. He's a real soft-spoken dude at the time, especially, and he gave us a demo. And it was unbelievable, like unbelievable. And it was our mission to tell the world about Rick Elias, because we didn't know they already knew, to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. Rick just didn't sell it very well. So in our minds, we were going to put Rick on the map. We're going to let him open for us, and which he did. He did solo acoustic shows opening for us while he was kind of finding his feet. So meanwhile, we get out of our MCA deal, and we're looking for a CCM deal. And everyone in town, I'm telling you this is true, they're like, man, we really like your band, but we're really trying to get Rick Elias. And if we get him, talk to us maybe in a year or something. Yeah. Everybody wanted Rick.
Wow.
And we thought we were giving him a leg up, which is so hysterical. But we just became friends. He produced a demo for Brighton, and then I wound up leaving. I left L.A. altogether, moved to Chicago for a while, and Rick moved to Nashville at about the same time. Mm. He needed a bass player for the tour. What
was the draw to Chicago?
The draw? Man, serendipity. I went through a divorce, and I was really devastated, and it really affected my life at church. And the divorce wasn't even my fault. I felt real like, because I was in the worship team, and I was in the altar boys, and I felt kind of a bit ostracized because Christians don't get divorced, Mm-hmm. And I didn't want the divorce. Now, the altar boys have my back, to their credit. My church wasn't quite so good, and I won't name them, but they weren't very cool about how things went down. Hmm. And it was a real shame. They took me off the worship team and stuff like that, where I'm like, what did I do? I'm trying my best here. I'm just barely hanging on, dude.
Yeah.
But the altar boys have my back the entire time when my life was at its very worst. Honestly, I sold everything, put what I had into a U-Haul, and I went to Indianapolis and called my dad. Said, hey, I'm getting out of L.A., and I'm going to give up music, and I need a place to stay for like 3 or 4 months, and I'm either moving to Nashville or Chicago. I don't know which, but I'm pretty sure I'm getting out of music. And they live in Indianapolis, halfway between the two. And it was for the first time ever. My parents, who never had one encouraging word to say about music. My dad, when I told him I was giving it up, he was like, you're not quitting music. But yeah, come on down. We got a room, and I'll put you to work the next day if you want. And that's when I finally got the encouragement to play, to go ahead and play. And that was like 1991. And I wound up touring with Rick for like 5 months, like within a month of living in Chicago.
But why Chicago?
I met a girl, I think was part of it. And John Thompson, I think, was a huge part of it. Also, a character named Larry Dean, who's a pastor up there. One of these kind of heavy metal pastors, really cool dude. Mm-hmm. But he sings like Geddy Lee, and he just is a character. He's an awesome guy. And his wife, Rhonda, was actually Brighton's first manager back in L.A. Now she's living outside of Chicago, and they are very dear to me, very important to me. Mm-hmm. John Thompson and Michelle quickly became extremely important to me. They introduced me to a girl I started dating, who's still a dear friend all these years later. Mm-hmm. And I just felt a certain comfort level there. I thought it was a really neat city. I liked their church. It's called the Warehouse. It was kind of a weird hippie rocker kind of church, but I kind of felt like I could get behind it. They kind of needed a decent bass player for the word. I felt like I had a purpose there. Mm-hmm. And there was a studio that wanted me to start playing sessions and co-producing records called Wonderland Records with a guy named Caesar Kalinowski. I went up doing like 10, 12 records with him, and I'd never produced a record in my life. Wow. And he got me into but I always wanted to, and he thought he saw potential. Mm-hmm. And so we started making records up there. And we made a whole mess of them. And really, I came to Nashville kicking and screaming. I didn't want to come here. It was really you guys. Like, Jimmy put a lot of pressure on me. He's like, dude, like Rich dies. Now I can't live anywhere I want. Right. If we're going to do the Rags, we got to live in the same town. Right. And Jimmy made that extremely clear. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. So I kept my apartment in Chicago, and I got a little apartment here because it used to be cheap here.
Used to be.
And, but after about a year, I realized I was never going back to Chicago ever at all. And so I just found that part of Nashville I could enjoy, mm-hmm. Because, when I first got here, it just seemed like Brentwood and Franklin. That's just not for me,
Everybody lived in Brentwood or Franklin.
Some people make it work. I just wasn't one of them.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take another break, folks. We'll be back in a couple of minutes here with my guest, Mr. Mark Robertson. We're going to talk about his music and career when we come back.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on InterTalkRadio.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
And we're back with my guest, Mr. Mark Robertson. And that was music by Prayer Flag.
Prayer Flags, yeah.
Yeah. That was, we were just talking about Mark's getting into punk, and how he came from prog rock to punk. Then he ends up playing with Rick Elias. So, he's had his hand in a lot of different musics here. But I want him to tell us all about all the things he's been doing in the last 10 years with the Eskimo Brothers, and the Shack Shakers, and just what being a believer, and I imagine that you're playing some pretty hardcore clubs,
sure,
and meeting all sorts of people. Just how does your faith kind of help you maneuver through that?
Oh, man. I think early on my faith hurt me to maneuver in a weird way. And it was a cultural thing that I started really having a hard time coming to grips with, I just think I spent too long in the type of churches where you really need to be cleaned up before you get there, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And repression never works. I mean, people, when you act like you could never possibly mess up, you're going to mess up. That stuff don't stay under the rug, Right. It was really a matter of going, no, I am capable of anything. I'm capable of any horrible thing anybody's capable of, practically. Mm-hmm. And then having characters in my life like Rick and Rich, who just were so honest about it.
Yeah.
But they also got a certain amount of freedom from it because of that. And I'm like, oh, that's it. I just can't care that people may not relate to the kind of person I am. Mm-hmm. And then once I got that freedom, I'm like, well, you know what? Actually, I don't like drugs. I don't like weird sex stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm not built that way. But and honestly, that was a real relief for me to go, like, I could do, I just hit a point where I go, like, I could do any of that stuff I want. I'm going to give myself permission. I just didn't want to. Mm-hmm. And that's where the freedom came in, honestly. I think, and then that made me really examine the whole thing. It's like, people are so paranoid. I'm like, well, how strong is your faith that you can't take listening to hearing some other point of view? It doesn't have to shake your fundamental.
Right.
It doesn't have to at all.
Right.
And in fact, JD from the Shack Shakers dealt with a lot of biblical topics, a lot. Dave Perkins did a really good interview with us once about all that stuff. But JD just kind of said, well, if you put the God of the Bible and the devil in a boxing match and see who wins, and don't be afraid and ask the hard questions, you come out of it a better person. It's like, I think that's why I admired Rich and Rick so much. They weren't afraid to look at the dark stuff.
Right.
And they came out as these very valuable people, mm-hmm. very deep. They aren't harsh to people who are struggling with things because they struggled.
Right.
And they're more able to pick up a kid. I think all these kids that just don't have a shot, in some cultural situations in the church, they don't have a shot because they're just too messed up. And what they really need is someone who just doesn't see any of that, or you know what I'm saying? Is that can help them through it, And so it got easier as it went, just because I see lots of goofy stuff. So have you over the years. You, mm-hmm. I mean, you were in Romeo Void. Who are you trying to kid? And we've seen stuff, but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. Eventually, the more comfortable you get with who you are, the more you can sort of cross through certain rooms and be unaffected by them. Right. And after a while, it just looks dopey. When I was 19, cocaine was really tempting. Mm-hmm. Now it just looks hysterical to me.
Yeah.
It just is so obviously dumb.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that only comes through messing up, or in my case, I can only speak for me. That only comes through messing up, through seeing it, through watching your friends go down the tubes or overcome it and excel and all the great things you see, And then you see these other, like Mike Stan from the Altar Boys. He is as squeaky clean as they ever got, and he has been his entire life, and it's worked. You know, he's got a great marriage to a wonderful, beautiful woman he's been with forever. He's got, you know, awesome children. He's got a great career. He did it the traditional route that I could never do.
Okay.
And I am jealous because he has way less scars, and he's a total role model of how to do it right.
Huh.
But I'm more like a Rick Elias, I think. You know, it's like I never learned anything the easy way.
Yeah.
I had to do the dumbest stuff to know.
To find out.
But, you know, as C.S. Lewis said, you know.
Sometimes that's where the knowing comes from.
Yeah, I mean, however you get it, man, you know. Yeah. C.S. Lewis said, if only fools learn from experience, at least they learn. And I can't remember what, it might have been The Great Divorce. I think he said, it said only fools learn from experience, but at least they learn. So allow this fool to share from his experience that wiser men may profit. That stuck with me my whole life, you know.
I love that book.
It's a great one.
I've been trying to get my daughter to do a movie on that book. We can do it now with technology.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
And it's a real stretch, too, you know, of the imagination, all that. But, yeah, that was a good one. That was...
I want you to tell me about Prayer Flag.
Prayer Flag?
And what it's like playing with them. Did you go on the road with them?
No, dude. Record? It's the record comes out the 29th.
Oh.
It's like coming out in a few days.
Okay.
And it's total full circle stuff. But over the last bunch of years, I got this buddy Harlow, who's a guitar player, and we've never had a project where he's one of my closest friends, but we never had a project that made sense to me. Like he wanted to be in the Shack Shakers. I don't think that's the right gig for you. Or he wanted to do something, a country gig. I'm like, dude, you ain't a country player. But we love all this weird art punk, like the Swell Maps and Half Japanese and some of those bands, and bands nobody likes but us. And then you find some people. When we just started writing, his kids went to daycare 2 days a week. So we like from 9 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the afternoon, twice a week. We wrote for 3 years, and compiled this record. And it's got, you know, the drummer's an old punk rock kid. You know, used to be in Thumbnail, and he's currently living in London, getting his doctorate in architecture.
Wow.
But he comes home, his family are from here, so we play 2 gigs a year. You know, when he comes home.
Uh-huh.
And he might actually accept a position at Vanderbilt within a year and a half or so we'll have him all the time. And then we've got a pedal steel player, but you can't recognize it as pedal steel. And he's been a bunch of great Nashville.
Effects?
Yeah, it's crazy. He's amazing. His name's Paul Niehaus. He was in Lamb Chop, and he plays for Justin Earl right now, and he was in Calexico. He was on Iron and Wine. He's a serious musician. And it was just, I think because I'm getting older, you know, with this train, the first record deal we got turned down for was because I was too old. And that was in 1992. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think I was almost 30 or something. And the label guy went like, dude, you're just too old. So I'm like,
wow.
But there's a real freedom in actually being older now, because I can do whatever the heck I want.
Yeah.
Because I don't really have any illusions. I'm not trying to get teenage girls to put my poster in their bedroom. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's real freeing musically to just play because it's fun.
Fun. Exactly.
And I have other ways to make a living at it, you know, but I still get to produce. I still do session work. The Eskimo Brothers keep me super busy, and they're rad. You know, just a terrific band, great dudes. It's kind of like rockabilly. It's like this train kind of stuff, cowpunk, rockabilly, country, old rock and roll, Chuck Berry kind of stuff, blues.
How did you come to the Shack Shakers?
I just thought JD, I met him, the singer, and I just thought he was the best frontman I'd ever seen. Yet he plays harp just like Little Walter. And then I heard him play piano, and he's unbelievable. And he's just kind of this weird genius, but the most irresponsible, crazy frontman ever. But that's totally not who he even is. He's an intellectual, quiet weirdo who just for 1 hour a night lost his mind in a way I've never seen anyone do in my life. And I was just totally drawn to it. He's still I left the Shack Shakers about 1.5 years ago, but he and I still play together when we can, and we're very dear friends.
Are they still playing?
Yeah, they are, and they're still killing it.
How did you get to become part of the band?
he asked me to fill in for somebody, and I wound up going out for 2 weeks with them. And by the end of the 2 weeks, the Ragamuffin band was just starting to dissolve. You know, everybody was kind of going their separate ways at that point. And the way the Ragamuffin band ended, you know, it's like we'd lost Rich. We carry on for, a couple years, except it just got harder and harder to do because people were trying to get us to be somebody else. Mm-hmm. And it got harder to do, and we all kind of started kind of drifting, as things do sometimes. And I just kind of went, I think I want to try this. I'm going to go broke, but I want to try it. And he didn't think I wanted to do it. I didn't think he wanted me to do it. And it turned out we were both wrong, and I wound up producing the last 5 records, and I don't know how many tours. I mean, we toured, you know, we toured the Black Keys and Robert Plant and the Roots and Flamin' Lips and
how was touring with the Roots? That's kind of a weird matchup.
It was weird. De La Soul were on that bill too.
Really?
Yeah, but there was other weird bands. It'd be like, you know, like the Melvins or something. It was a very eclectic thing. It was sponsored by some booze company or something. We played these big, like, kind of like outdoor arena type things, and we did a bunch of gigs in different cities. And the Roots were one of the top on the bill, obviously, and we were toward the bottom. We had great shows. I watched them, and people kept coming up. I got really angry because I thought the music was pretty good. I love that band. I just think they're, you know, amazing musicians, and the way they bring in other players and instantly can feed off of them. They're very kinetic players. Mm-hmm. And I kept having all these people come up to me and go like, isn't this cool? They're kind of like hip hop, but they play their own instruments. I'm like, what do you mean? What's so cool about that? We play our own instruments. And it almost, I thought the inference was, yeah, but they're black. And I think the inference was that.
Okay.
And I was so angry about it. I'm like, isn't that adorable or something? I was just so angry about it. And it made me kind of have a bad attitude toward the Roots in a way, except, you know, it's like you talk to Quest or any of those guys after the gig or backstage, they're sweethearts. Cool dudes. I didn't have an axe to grind for them personally. I just thought, what a weird position to be in. To be, it's shocking. It just struck me as like, boy, racism is just alive and well. If you're shocked that these guys are well-spoken people who can play and dedicate themselves to a craft and be good at it. I'm like, we got a long way to go if that's the case.
Yeah.
And the people telling me this were white people who were well-intentioned. I don't think they were trying to be racist. I don't think they realized, but to me that was so racist I couldn't wrap my head around it. If you know what I mean. It's like, and you may have some experience with knowing African Americans who play in the arts, you know.
You're right.
But
I do.
But you know what I'm saying? I just go like I just didn't get it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll just.
It's hard. Yeah, I understand that. It's like the comment. It was yesterday. You know, the whole national anthem thing that was going on this weekend, and Stevie Wonder was somewhere, and he took a knee, and some guy wrote, "There goes another rich, unappreciative black person taking a knee," you know, and he said it as if Stevie's wealth had been a gift from the white community.
Yeah, he didn't earn it.
Yeah, he didn't earn it. Yeah. You know, it's just, you know, and you just got all these different, I mean, stuff is coming out of the woodwork, and it's like it's coming out of the grave, or, you know, like dead people or something.
You know, we're in a cultural situation, and I don't want to get political because it's a dead-end street, you know, but we are in a climate that is allowing things to take many steps backwards, I think. Mm-hmm. And certain people, I think, who were being kind of weeded out in a very positive way feel like they have a voice and they're very happy. But tricky stuff because it's not a good voice.
It's not a good voice, folks, but we thank you for bringing your voice here today, Mark.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, man. Thanks, folks, for listening in today, and we hope to see you next Tuesday. Peace out.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.